Oh, me and Joan are in Memphis, Tennessee, and we're going to see fun stuff today, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Oh, me and Joan are in Memphis, Tennessee, and we're going to see fun stuff today, aren't we?
Absolutely.
And we're going to start right here at, can you see it through the sun? That's right. We're on Beale Street, y'all. And this looks fun. We're going to be walking right down through there. And if we can get in, we're going to get into the Rock and Blues Hall of Fame. B.B. King's place. We've been there before. It's been a long time, but this will be fun. Well, I can promise you when you come here, you're going to see everything B.B. King, everything Muddy Water, all kinds of cool places, and everybody needs the toilet seat made out of a guitar. Absolutely. And we are looking for a place to eat, and it looks like there's at least 100 places here. Joan, what you interested in? Look at that Georgia shirt. That's a nice looking Georgia shirt. Well, we just left the King's Palace, home of the championship gumbo. Man, it was good. And we are going to ease on down the line here. Oh, I hope I don't get a copyright strike. There's a lot of music going on. But we're going to ease on down through here and see some sights. And I think we're going to go to the Rock and Soul Museum if we can get in. We'll see what happens. The other end of Beale Street. Aside from all the trucks and noise, you see Alfred's, great place to be able to come hear things. And then there's Jerry Lee Lewis's place. And then of course the tin roof down there. Just lots and lots of fun. Well, here we go, the Rock and Soul Museum. I cannot wait to go in here. This is gonna be fun. Unfortunately, I'm not able to take video inside the Rock and Soul Museum because of all the music. There was tons and tons of music that was being played, and there were copyright issues, but I was allowed to take pictures. So I hope that you'll enjoy the stroll that Joan and I made as we were going through. As we first walk into the museum, we start seeing pictures of so many things that had a primary influence on the music in Memphis. And that was from, the blues that originated out of many of the farms and the cotton fields that were there. And, it was both the farms, it was the music out of the church houses that was having a huge influence as well. And then, radio pops up, and radio's looking for formats, and then we start seeing these types of music slip into the society that we have today. Of course, Robert Johnson in 1911 was the big deal. He's kind of like one of the fathers of recorded blues music from this area. But we then continue on and just see so many different elements of life in Memphis in the early 1900s, from all the different types of music venues that was really just steeped in black blues music. It really hadn't started making crossover into the white listeners at this point in time, but it was continuing to develop and getting richer and richer. All the dance clubs and the music clubs that were very, very popular in Memphis through this era, and it wasn't just the blues that was popping up. You're seeing the guy from my hometown, Little Richard, he's making his rock and roll debut coming through Memphis. You're seeing some of the softer popular artists of that period of time, Fats Domino, coming into these areas, and all, we're starting to see a blend of genre here of both, the R&B that's coming up, the blues that is coming up, and jazz notes that were coming up during this period. But the big issue that was really causing, I guess, the crossover was WDIA. They called it Teen Town. WDIA was the first all-black owned radio station in the United States, and it was playing tons and tons and tons of Memphis music. It was right there in the heart of the Memphis music scene. And then there were, quite notorious disc jockeys during this period of time. They really were starting to make this introduction of just not only R&B music and jazz, but now, they're picking up on the early rock and roll artists of this period of time, and they're showing it. One of the things that I really thought was extremely interesting was seeing all the old recording equipment that came out of the studios. I mean, the old 2-channel tape recorders, the amplifiers, and I just absolutely fell in love with being able to see this and the mock-ups of the old studios that are no longer around, yet the equipment survived. Of course, you can't come to Memphis without seeing, you know, something Elvis. I mean, he was just such a huge monumental influence of you know, rock and roll during this period. Carl Perkins, if you know much about the history about Carl Perkins and Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins was supposed to go out on tour. He had a horrendous car accident and was hospitalized they looked for a replacement. It was Elvis Presley. Guess what? History changed. I mean, you can't come to Memphis without seeing something B.B. King. There's a street named after him. Here's a picture of his blues club. And Joan and I have been there and just did it one evening, and it was just absolutely fantastic. Music instrument after music instruments on display of all the famous artists that came out of Memphis, and you had just every single artist and the influence that they had on not just Memphis music, but just rock and roll and this whole scene. There's my Otis Redding. Again, you've heard me talk about the roots of what comes out of Macon, Georgia, and there's another son who grew up in a small community just outside, recorded right down the road at Stax Records, and you'll be seeing that in just a few minutes. There's Isaac Hayes in the top left-hand corner, big force at Stax Records. Al Green, another one of my favorites. Oh my goodness, I just love these guys growing up with them and listening to them. They actually had clothing, you know, from when they wore them on tour. And look, it was not just all, you know, slick R&B guys. You still saw, you know, the colors of country that would come out from many of the suits. There's some more Elvis wear that we came across. An incredible show of guitars from many signed artists. But as you walk out of the Rock and Soul Museum, this is what you see. This, folks, is a multi-track soundboard, but it's just not any multi-track soundboard. This soundboard came from Ardent Studios. Yep, and I'm going to try to zoom in here. I know it's going to be kind of tight, but just look at some of the artists who have recorded on this. Tons of my favorites. Another Georgia group, REM, out of Athens, Georgia. Cheap Trick, Steve Earle, ZZ Top recorded on this board. Al Green, Isaac Hayes, another blues favorite of mine, huge blues favorite of mine, Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, just look at this list. It goes Bob Dylan. It just goes on and on and on. And, you know, I couldn't walk out of this place without just reaching over and seeing if I could feel some of the vibrations of what was experienced at the Rock and Soul Museum off this music board. It was just absolutely a fantastic experience to be able to go through and see all this great music history that originated in Memphis, but yet just affected so many of us and still does today. There you go. Rock and Soul Museum. Oh my goodness, was this one cool place. It was awesome to go in there. Well, of course, Memphis is known for the blues and Stax Records and Sun Records and all that cool stuff that I love so much. But there's one thing you've got to come see. Look at that thing. Oh, this is gonna be fun. The most unusual Bass Pro Shop ever. I understand this thing's crazy inside. Well, you start over there, and then it's called Welcome to Paradise. I just told the lady who welcomed us as we came in that we would see her tomorrow. Would you look at this place? This is crazy. Look at this. Now, here's what's so wild. I mean, first of all, look, you've got, can you see them? If you look here, they've got a creek running through here and it's full of fish. Would you look at that? There you go, look at that. That is wild. But it gets crazier. Now, this is where they used to play basketball back in the day. But if you notice up here on the second and third floor, think this is like 160, 180 room hotel. And the old skyboxes out there where you see the screened in porches. Is that crazy? Look at that. But look at the creek running through here, full of fish. This is the wildest thing I have ever seen in my life. This is crazy. So every four-wheel thing in the world exists here. Look at this. And I can't wait to show you downstairs. They got several restaurants here. One is Uncle Buck's Fish Bowl and Grill. Yep, they've got a bowling alley down below, and it is like eating and bowling underwater. Isn't that crazy? And I don't know, this is kind of a first for me. I've never been into a Bass Pro that had their own alligators. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Oh, not just the two in the water. Look at that one up there sunning himself on the rock. Oh my goodness. Well, let's see. Nope. No mail. And for a modest fee, you can ride all the way to the top, oh my gosh, of the pyramid. There we go, get out of the light. And look out from the top. But I think we're gonna skip that one this trip. Just look at this place. There's just water everywhere. It's just absolutely amazing. And then you come to this thing. Now that's probably the largest aquarium. Look at that. With just all kinds of critters in there. Look at that. Look at the size of this catfish. He's about 2.5 feet long. Look at that. And then the big boy back there in the back is probably about 3.5 feet long. Look at the size of these things. Look at this. And of course, when you go inside of a Bass Pro, why wouldn't you have a boat in the middle of it in the indoor man-made creek with a pontoon boat? And of course, as in true tradition of all Bass Pros, I got me a boat and I got me a truck to pull it. Got me a Yeti 110. Well, you know the deal. Look at this. Yeah, boy. Oh, there you go. Look at that. That makes my stomach hurt. Those folks are going all the way up to the top. Nope. Well, there is another hot spot for Memphis. Look at that. Sun Studios. I hope I can get in. We'll see. There's a ton of people here. You see a few shots from the inside, but unfortunately a massive tour bus just came up and dumped everybody out, and it's going to be hours before I can go do a tour. And they are stacked up like crazy. You see you saw the pictures on the inside. We got us some merch. We'll try it again later. Well, if you come to Memphis, there's a couple places that you always want to go, and for sure the Rock and Soul Museum that I mentioned, Sun Studios that I just showed, but you really have to come to Stax Records Museum. This place is absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, the original Stax is gone. It was torn down after a bankruptcy, but a group has come back and rebuilt the museum on the original site. Fortunately, tons and tons of the original artifacts from that studio has been retained. And this is an incredible museum of R&B music from the Memphis scene. Two areas that really were substantial in your R&B music that we all remember and love. Of course, you had Motown in Detroit, which is your, your smooth Smokey Robinsons and the Supremes and so forth. But when you came to Stax in Memphis, that R&B music, for lack of a better term, was pure energy. And it was so much fun to go through. You know, this is the stuff I grew up on. Just absolutely loved going through this place, seeing, you know, just display after display after display with things from Ike and Tina Turner from their review. And I just got to share with you here, it is just an absolute amazing area. And it wasn't just, you know, R&B that came out of here as well. There was, you know, country roots. But again, just, you know, as I was showing up at the Rock and Soul presentation, there's so much of the original equipment, the amplifiers, the recording equipment. Can you just imagine, you know, who stood behind these things and recorded? You see the Stewarts, who were just so involved in so much of this music, from just, you know, engineering to just the management of these groups. I apologize for some of these pictures because so much of this had to be shot from behind glass. Just most favorite acts from the 60s was Booker T. Jones, and they called it the Stax Groove, and it was quite interesting to see the mix of artists. There's a great video when you first come in, and the artists talk about, you know, there was no division between black artists, white artists. They were there for love of the music, and they all felt like they were just one single Stax family of just recording artists. It was really quite warm. This is an interesting group. This is called the Marqués. If you'll notice, even though Stax is, you know, known for the black R&B sound, these guys were, you know, the studio guys many times back in the back. And they said it was quite interesting when they would go to some of the R&B events, and the whole place would get quiet when they would show up, because, you know, they thought this is not going to be R&B music, and these guys would just, you know, absolutely bring the ceiling tiles down. William Bell, another great favorite of mine. There was a nice display dedicated to him. Here's more of the Booker T and the MG guys. As a matter of fact, I just saw him on a YouTube video the other day on live at Daryl's house. Here's the Barkays. This was one of the big money makers for Stax originally. And then again, you cannot think Stax and not think Otis Redding. He was just an absolutely monumental R&B force. And it was great being able to just stand in front of that monitor and hear some of the great music and see him live in concert. Sam and Dave, another favorite of mine, a great display dedicated to them. There's Isaac Hayes, who was a big artist at Stax during the period. And Wilson Pickett, again, he actually had some Macon roots at one period of time. And another very famous guy by the name of Dwayne Allman, who was not Stax, but who also ended up in Macon, was his guitar player on his version of Hey Jude. And look at this. This is just absolutely incredible. Here's the boxes in the original. I don't know that the tapes are in here. I hope that they've been preserved. But here's the boxes of all the tapes of so many artists and what they had sung. Can you just imagine the history? Now here you go. This is one of the things that I was just absolutely thrilled to see. This is the original recording equipment that was used at Stax, from preamps to soundboard. And then as you look through that window, that is a recreation of the studio from that period. I think this studio was originally a movie theater, and when it was purchased, they converted just much of this to office space in the recording studio that was there. It was just an absolutely amazing timeline that you could view here of all the different artists who recorded on this soundboard. And yes, I did, just like I did at the Rock and Soul Museum. You can touch it, and I did. I had to. I can just only imagine who might have recorded there. Here you're able to actually go inside the studio and see many of the instruments that many players have left there. You know, this is a view looking inside the window from the sound booth, and this is the actual recording studio itself, or at least a reproduction of it. And many of these things, from speakers to instruments to drum kits. There's Steve Cropper's Fender. Big deal. Steve Cropper, he played with so many artists that was there. It was just great to be able to see that. No, you don't get to touch it. It's all behind glass. Just You know, looking in the studio and walking through all these instruments, it was just absolutely amazing just to read each individual plaque and just see the contribution that not just the instrument, but the artist that was behind them. And to just imagine, you know, what those sounds were like inside that studio when they were recording it. It really was a great experience to be able to see this. Then as you just walk around, there's just tons and tons of album covers of just so many. I mean, look at this. This hallway just shows all the Stax artists. Look at this. All the Stax artists who recorded here and was released under the Stax label. It was just absolutely amazing to be able to see that. And of course, I got to be able to show the Otis Redding. There he is. And then look at this wall here. This is gold and platinum records from this period of time. Just this massive wall of just, again, showing the impact that this music had on so many. And even as you walk out, the displays don't stop. It's just, you know, continued display after display after display of clothing, instruments, gold records, pictures, history. But look at this thing. Yep, this is Isaac Hayes' gold Cadillac. Look at this thing. I mean, isn't this something? It is quite an amazing thing. How in the world they talked Isaac Hayes into displaying this thing at the museum, I'll never know, but I can pretty much assure you that this is the only one. Look at this thing. It is so Isaac Hayes. Well, this is a great tour. Again, just think of all these just absolutely fantastic artists that you're able to see. And then as you walk out and heading back up to the parking lot, there's just one more thing to see. And this is a piece of sculpture. Again, I think it's just one of those things. It's just one of a kind, dedicated to Steve Cropper and his influence not only in R&B music, but to Stax Records as well. Fantastic tour.